What's going on, everyone? So we have a video here with you know, Dreamcast guy. I kind of like to jest a bit, with my TV slurping a lot. But in this video, I can understand what he's saying. So this is about to him, Sony giving up and just not caring about retro games. And what's interesting about that is that they did make the wrong decisions. But you see, as I said before, everything that Microsoft does, they eventually start imitating. Like now you see them trying to get, some sort of backwards compatibility support, but kind of like in a hybrid sense. It's not fully integrated, going all the way back to PS1, kind of like how Microsoft has to go all the way back to original Xbox, then 360, Xbox One, and then Series X. Like they have a fully integrated system. And could Sony had made more effort to have PS3 games more available for the PlayStation 5? Yeah, we know they could have done that, but they chose not to do that. And then they give you the premium charge on top of that, but you're still not getting full native support. So then we look at like a lot of retro games they have too, and it's like, what are you doing with all those games sitting around? Like you should find a way to get those going. And if they would have dug through that and done that the right way, instead of all these live service games, things would have been a lot better. But of course, they didn't do that. So let's see what he has to say. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys think along the way. All right, let's go.
PlayStation is officially just giving up on their old games. It feels like they don't actually care about their retro franchises.
No, that's not slop. Excuse me for that though. But yeah, like he was saying though, it was a give up. I mean, even God of War was deemed done after the PS3 generation. Corey Barlog's team and them had to prove them wrong. Like Sony's vision was poor in a lot of situations in the past 10 years on a lot of things, and we could see that if people paid close attention. But of course, the fanboys won't. So they're just positively deluded.
The stuff that made them popular in the first place. For the most part, they've kind of just ignored it. And even more recent games that have become incredibly popular, like Bloodborne, they don't even acknowledge it. A couple days ago, literally a couple days ago, was the 10th anniversary of Bloodborne, which seems like one of the most popular PlayStation 4 games ever. It didn't even get a tweet. But I wanted to talk about this today because
Yeah, they should have done something. You know what I mean? It's like you don't say anything, and it's just not good. Even though I know, how Miyazaki wants them to wait on him, just want it to be a 1-to-one. But at the end of the day, say something. You know what I mean? Like not even a teaser or nothing.
yesterday there was a Nintendo Direct. A lot of people hated it. The main conversation is worst.
Wait, what? A lot of people hated the Nintendo Direct. Hold on a second. You know what I find funny about that is that they're talking about a Switch One Direct, right? How are we at 5.5 million views? 190K likes? Only a little bit under 8,000. Dude, that ratio is like 97%. What is he talking about? You might want to look at this, bro. The Direct already passed it up, and that's for Switch One. This has 21,000 dislikes and 71K likes. The Direct just came out literally less than 2 days ago, and it's still trending number 8, and it's at 5.592. Way more likes and less dislikes. You want to know what I find funny about that? It's like his statement saying, "Everybody, what do you mean? Like that was a good direct just for like to finish off the Switch. Then you got the Switch 2 direct coming next week. What are we talking about here? Yeah, let's be a little bit more honest about that.
Final Nintendo Direct, but I had a pretty good time. Yeah, a lot of the
Yeah,
games sucked, but it had Metroid, so I was happy with it. But there was something exceptionally strange. New PlayStation games from PlayStation Studios, but not made by PlayStation and not exclusive to the PS5. But let's talk about it because I think that Sony is starting to change their strategy with Double A. They only want to have the biggest, craziest, flashiest games, but for their classic series, their classic IP, I think they're going to let other people kind of just do their best with it. Let's talk. Hi, hope you're having a great day. And
Hmm.
if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So, here are the two games they revealed yesterday that, I mean, everybody is so confused by, but it's now been 24 hours and they're releasing these completely new logos. If you grew up playing Hot Shots Golf on the PlayStation 1, especially, I put so many hours into Hot Shots Golf, they brought it back. We're getting a completely new Hot Shots Golf. Now, in Japan, it's always been called Everybody's Golf. They combined it. So now the complete name is going to be Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. But Patapon, I am obsessed with Patapon because I'm a big PSP fanatic. They're bringing them back. They're doing a remastered coupled collection with new features. These have been remastered on PlayStation 4, but now they've actually fixed some of the glitches to timing and stuff that very essential rhythm game. But people are like, bro, seeing these two logos in an official Nintendo Switch graphic is still surreal. What a time to be alive. This is
It's okay. Sony's going more third party. Some people can't handle that.
an official tweet by Nintendo, basically advertising some great upcoming PlayStation games. But people are already beginning to say, okay, so it seems like what's happening is Bandai Namco has secured the rights. Now, Bandai Namco has actually been doing other stuff with PlayStation, but they already have commercials ready. They already have advertising. They already have a big media blitz going on for these games. It's so cool to see Patapon coming back. God, I love Patapon. Bandai Namco is already putting more effort into preserving and marketing PlayStation classics than Sony themselves has done in the last 15 years. I'm sick to my stomach. Now, I think this
There you go. Good job admitting that, Dreamcast guy. But it's like I said before, like it's just like when you look at Sony's efforts on PC too, like yeah, they need to step their game up. Like, and they need to be more pro-consumer friendly, at least in a sense to where you want your IP to be taken so serious that you're involved yourself.
person's being hyperbolic to be silly, they have championed some classics. We did have the medieval remake in Shadows of Colossus, but
Hmm.
definitely for easily the last 8 or 9 years, Sony has been dead silent about their classics other than like, drip feeding us stuff on PlayStation Plus Premium. But I have seen people saying, okay, if all three of these games, Freedom Wars Remastered, Hot Shots Golf, Patapon, if those can all be licensed, if those can be revived, if those can be brought back, maybe they can bring back Bloodborne. Bloodborne is also technically under the Japan Studio IP. Now, thus far, this very much seems like a big pivot from what PlayStation has typically been up to. By far, the company, the studio that people have talked about the most as sort of the canary of the coal mine when
Yeah, well, they shouldn't have a shutdown. That just gives you the idea of the Western influence upon Sony, who was supposed to be a Japanese company, but yet they let the Westerners take over, shut down Japanese development, right? Just, they didn't see any need for a double A games. They thought they were going to have the world with their movie narrative rush and their live service. The only way to make that much is just if you have diluted arrogance in a worse way. And that all ended up backfiring. And then they ended up trying to celebrate their game of the year, which kind of is about 70% off of Mario. And most of the DNA comes out of Japan, or something like Astrobot, which kind of goes back to Japan studios. And it's like, what are you doing here? And not only that, but it's like the game sold what, 1.5 million? So after everything you've done, this is kind of like your take on Japanese games. I want to kind of run back to that a little bit. Like this is where you see that the vision is poor and that the leadership is just not good. And that their DNA, like when I tell you, when you look at Sony, you do not see a Japanese company. You see a hybrid Western company. It's always changing its identity. It doesn't have a solidified identity like you would see they have from its hometown. It's just not there. They even screw over their own hometown multiple times, as I've told people. You can even go all the way back to the Sega days and see what happened with the Dreamcast and EA, the EA deal of locking out Virtual Studios, who was the 2K team, when Sega had them, because that was Sega's team. And then they end up telling Sega if you don't, remove those games because they were beating them, NBA Live and beating Madden, that they're not going to put all their games on Dreamcast, and they're going to, pretty much ride off in the sunset with Sony. And then they made that deal with Madden for almost 20 years to lock out all the licenses just so Sega could not be able to afford it and not be able to have the roster that they needed. And Sony sided with EA to do that. It's like EA's a Western company. Y'all both Japanese. Y'all should still like defend y'all sometime, but they didn't do that. So EA didn't end up putting any of their games on Dreamcast because they got mad because Sega was beating them straight up. Sega even said, they're like, it's fair game. You know what I mean? We're competing. I'm competing against you with NBA 2K, and I'm competing against you with NFL 2K. You know what I mean? And because EA couldn't take that, they went and made that evil deal with Madden and put all the tournaments on PlayStation. And EA put full support on PlayStation, didn't put any on Sega. It's just dumb stuff like that. Like, and there's more to it too. Sony is just not trustworthy. Just all the moves they've done. So I've always had a grudge against them, even since those days. I still support their consoles, but it's like, in order for them to get into situations that they're in now, and how successful they are, it's not what you think. And on top of that, you realize they're dealing with a bunch of karma. Yeah, of course. It's like the denial of cross play last gen, let the communities die. Like, there's a lot of things you see they do. It's like, well, oh man, it's like they only care about their side succeeding, but they don't care about gaming like that. In that sense, you can kind of see it. And that's why I've never really been a Sony type of individual. And most people that are fully into Sony do not see that. And they don't care to. Like, you have to like make them aware of it.
It felt like PlayStation kind of pivoted tactics is Japan Studio. There used to be a group of people specifically inside of PlayStation that's job it was to make lower budget, incredibly good classics.
And they wouldn't cost so much, and there would be a good balance between the AA and the AAA, along with a live service coming like once a year or twice a year. You don't want to do too many, right? Like, they should have had more of a balance and not throw their whole history off the rail as if like that's not what got you here, and just screw all of it, burn it down, and let's do this whole new thing that none of us are used to doing, like live service and all that's like, what are you doing? You're destroying everything that you've built, and you're abandoning your ancestry and your foundation. Like, you used to have a balance of between Japanese and Western, even if it wasn't like in-house, you know what I mean, Japanese, like there was still some balance there. And that's why you see the way Japan had turned towards Nintendo even more in the past few generations, was like 90% Nintendo focus. They see it.
Knack, Ape Escape, Gravity Rush, Puppeteer, obviously The Last Guardian, Loco Roco. These are all games that, even if they're not winning a ton of awards, even if they're not the biggest, craziest thing ever, they're good games. They're incredibly good games that are creative and different. And I feel like different is the important thing. So many people make memes about the fact that everything from PlayStation is an over-the-shoulder, narrative-heavy experience. They don't do a lot of shooters. They don't do a lot of online stuff. It's just this, right? Well, I guess current PlayStation's very obsessed with live service. But Shuhei Yoshida recently left PlayStation, and now he's allowed to talk about whatever he wants. He's been making jokes about how he's legally allowed, because he's not tied up with PlayStation. He's allowed to talk about how excited he is for the Nintendo Switch 2. But he says that a major reason he left is because he felt weird about the fact that they were shutting studios down. Shuhei Yoshida says that Japan Studio was shut down because PlayStation does not want AA games. They only want AAA. But here is...
I don't know how many times we see it, how poor their vision has been this generation. And all the beans are being spilled out by Shuhei, by Sean Layden, and all of them. You see Jim Ryan's not saying anything. Of course he's not. That scumbag's not going to say anything. But they do, because they're the ones that care. They're the ones that actually had the vision. He should have never got the position that he had. But hey, there are no mistakes in life. People make choices they want to make in those current times, and you got to pay the piper. So you can make a choice, but you don't make the consequence. You don't get to decide that. No, the other powers that rule the universe do. But yeah, this just gives you another example. See, look, who was leading and who said that, right? That means I don't want Japan to be at the front of anything, right? And you saw that broken communication, like he was telling you back then. Japan used to be at the ahead, and Sony Japan, and we were in full sync. We had a full unity going, and then when he got lead, everything broke apart, right? And then Japanese leadership over in Japan would get information when they wanted them to get it. Like you can't let this type of stuff happen because that's a hijacking and a takeover, right? Because that also means Western politics, and you just interjecting that into games and just tearing down everything that they built. That's how you know, like I say, it's a worldwide thing that happened. So we see it.
This is the main reason I want to talk about this. I think that in a way, PlayStation has perhaps, and I'm being very optimistic here, they've perhaps found a way to have the best of both worlds, where they can focus their budget, their time, their marketing on the big AAA stuff that's going to make
Their budget? What do you mean, bro? They blew it all in the wind into a fire and into dust with all those cancels and Concord and all that. Lost a lot of money.
hopefully billions of dollars and sell PlayStations. But at the same time, they're going to make it so they can license their older games. They can basically say, all right, other people, you're allowed to remaster this, to do whatever you want. We want a big cut. Like this, people are basically being like, okay, Sony has now officially started licensing out their dormant intellectual property to third parties. We've seen this now in 2023 with the Fantavision remake. We've seen this year with the Freeamore's remaster, Patapon, and Everybody's Golf. These all being brought by Bandai Namco. It seems like we could be getting other remasters as well. Games that maybe deserve to come back, like Gravity Rush or Tokyo Jungle. Games that are not just incredibly good, but in a lot of ways, I feel like they would sell 10 times better. Gravity Rush and Tokyo Jungle are very, very famous games because they were so overlooked. Gravity Rush is like a time tilty game. You can basically attack by controlling gravity. You turn gravity to hit people, you turn gravity to run up walls and solve puzzles and stuff. Incredibly good games. They're extremely, extremely unique. And at the time, they admitted that even for how tiny the budgets were, they sold almost 0 copies. And PlayStation was disappointed because they couldn't tell it was good. People that played it could tell it was good. And the same for Tokyo Jungle. That was like a open world roguelike that was incredible.
It's because the Western audience that they built are not interested in that. Look at what sells on PlayStation, what the majority of people play, and it's a Japanese console. You don't see that on Nintendo. That's what I mean by, like, it's because of Sony. It's the way that they wanted to move for their success. They sold out to the West and sacrificed their Japanese heritage. They did. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Incredibly difficult at the time, but now people kind of appreciate good difficulty, and roguelikes are now more popular than ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that PlayStation perhaps has started to think about how they handled Spider-Man when it comes to the Sony movies. Now, keep in mind, Sony technically owns the infinite rights to Spider-Man. They can make whatever they want, anytime they want, as long as it's a movie, right? But the Spider-Man movies were never as big and popular as they wanted, which is why they eventually lent Spider-Man to the Marvel movies. That's why you didn't see Spider-Man for a very long time until, like, phase 3? I have no idea how the Marvel movie works anymore. But that's when they started to basically say, okay, you can put Spider-Man in movies, you can have Tom Holland swing around and make this new era of Spidey with No Way Home and A Long Way Home and all that, but we want 10%. We want 10% off the top of all your box office. So basically Sony found a way to make hundreds of millions of dollars for very minimal work. I think they're trying to replicate that in the gaming business of, okay, we have this back catalog that everybody still wants, but we just don't want to focus our efforts, our time, our development, our marketing on these games.
They can't afford to take the risk to revitalize all those games and them to not sell on PlayStation. They want to get it off to other people, take constant profit because they're not making much mistakes there, and you get more of that profit by putting it on multiple platforms and taking that idle fee. See, that's what they're doing, so they don't get involved and do it. So, yeah, like I said, it's a no risk, easy reward. Still looking for easy money. Same thing with the remasters and all that. So this is kind of what I wanted to cover, and it's pretty obvious the route that Sony's trying to go now, and they want to do that so it doesn't look like they're publishing it, but they're taking the money and they're going third party. Hey, let me know if I'm wrong. All right, y'all. Peace out. Have a great day. Ponies, sit down. Accept the third party.